Good morning. I'm Leisa, and it's my privilege to preach the word today here at North Brisbane Salvation Army. Those lights are really quite bright. Well, we are in the process of working through a series. Our theme for 2017 is Seek First the Kingdom in Matthew 6:33. This is driving our focus this year. And as I said, we're right in the middle of this series. I'm not sure how many weeks it goes for, but I think we're at about the week 7 mark. So I hope you will stay with me on this, because we're really only just getting momentum here. It's been a good series, and it's been very challenging each week. If you've missed any, you can catch up on our podcasts, and I would recommend that you do that. So, as I said, it's my absolute pleasure today to shine the kingdom torch on what Jesus calls acts of righteousness. These are giving, praying, and fasting. Kingdom people give, pray, and fast. They also bless, but we're going to come to that. Let's look first at giving. Giving is personal. I think Donna actually said in her introduction to our self-denial this morning that we don't have that personal connection with the people we see on the videos. But giving is a personal thing. Recently, I felt God prompting me to make a decision about my giving and my spending. Doing a Navigating Finances course will do that to you. And I realised that I don't like when other people tell me how I should be spending my money and who I should be giving to. I was walking through a shopping centre not long ago, and I had a guy stop me and said, "Have you heard of the Cancer Council?" Well, who hasn't heard of the Cancer Council? I very keenly said, "Well, yes, I have. You guys do a great job." And his next question was, "Do you support us already?" And my response was, "Well, not financially." And so that just got the ball rolling, and he just kept talking and talking and talking. And before I knew it, I had a contract in front of me and a pen in my hand. I really felt bulldozed into signing up to give to them. And that wasn't a good feeling for me. It's a great cause, and we should be helping them. But the way they solicited my support really didn't sit well. Something happened in the course of this Navigating Finances journey that I was on. Something was said, and it really stuck with me. So they use the example of large organisations like the Cancer Council, having this massive target audience, because in reality, who hasn't had some connection in some way to someone who's been affected by cancer? They really do have a target audience of everyone to support them. But when it comes to smaller Christian charities, we really don't have that scope of audience that will partner with us and come on board and give to our causes. That really spoke to me, and I wanted to share that today because I think that's an important lesson for us when we are making decisions about our giving. And Jesus says in his passage that we should give. This is good to give, but we should make judgments about who we're giving to. And giving is personal. In verse 2 it says, "Give to the needy." Other translations, if you read other translations, you may have come across the word almsgiving, or giving alms. Not alms, but alms, A-L-M-S. Almsgiving is an ancient religious practice that many religions still practice today. It's one of the 5 pillars of the Islam faith. It's one of the 3 elements of the path of practice for Buddhists, and it's considered a very noble virtue by Hindus. The Jewish faith that Jesus himself was born and raised in considers almsgiving an act of righteousness, an essential element for spiritual growth and relationship with God. As a Jew, Jesus was committed to providing for the less fortunate. As Christians, I believe we are equally committed to that cause. Almsgiving is the responsibility of those who have more to give for those who have less. When we belong to the church, people will assume that we give, and that we give to help those less fortunate. I believe that our church is very good at this, and I think our self-denial last year really demonstrates how good we are at this. Because we've accepted responsibility. We've accepted responsibility for those who have less than we do. And this makes us dutiful, faithful, generous people. And this is good. But the point I'm making is that anyone can do that. I was thinking about that, and Richard Branson came to mind. I think he's a good example. He's a very wealthy man. He's a generous giver, and he's concerned for the state of our planet. He's concerned for those less fortunate. I don't know Richard Branson personally, but what I know about him publicly is that he is a very generous person. He gives of his time and his money to empower others for the greater good. The question I ask today is, does that make him a kingdom person? Is giving for the less fortunate what makes us kingdom people? Well, I don't think it is. There's more to it than just being a committed, generous giver. Okay, we're going to move on to prayer. Just as almsgiving is an act of righteousness, so is prayer. It's an essential element in our spiritual growth and relationship with God. And again, praying is not just reserved for Christians. Prayer is a part of life for all people of all faiths. Prayer is a way of connecting with God, communicating with God. Jesus provides this model of prayer for his disciples in verses 9 and 13, which Matthew very wonderfully read for us earlier. And this model is used by many churches still today. It's known as the Lord's Prayer. Tonight at our powerhouse, our prayer powerhouse, we'll be engaging with the Lord's Prayer in a deeper way than what we have time for here today this morning. But as I read through the passage, and this passage is something that I've read a number of times, I observed something new. Verse 7 really jumped out at me. It says, "Do not keep on babbling like pagans." And I looked up the definition of babbling, and it means repeating the same words over and over without thinking. Now, I've got to be honest here. Sometimes I think I do that with the Lord's Prayer. I was raised in the church, and so every week we recited this prayer, these verses. They became just words that I just kept repeating. And don't get me wrong, that's a good thing that they're memorized. They're on my mind, and I can memorize them. But I think what challenged me when I read, "Do not keep on babbling like pagans," do not keep on repeating these words over and over, was the without thinking part. Because sometimes I don't actually think about these words. Especially because I actually learnt them in the Old English language. "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Forgive us our trespasses." They're not words that I use in everyday language. But when I recite the Lord's Prayer, these words come out of me. It's quite amazing. But how many times have we done that? Have we recited the Lord's Prayer over and over? So I want to encourage you to come tonight. I'm sure that there's going to be something deeper for us to learn about the Lord's Prayer. There's much more to it than the poetic words we memorise. There's a certain structure to it, certain intentional elements that help us focus on God, His name, His kingdom, His will, His provision, His protection. So giving and prayer are what kingdom people do. Something else that kingdom people also do is fast. I used to work for an insurance broker. I feel a bit vulnerable saying that because I know the reputation of insurance brokers. Please don't hold it against me. But I worked for this small insurance brokerage in Sydney. We were a small, close-knit group and a real mix of different people from different walks of life, even different cultures and different faiths. Our team was mostly women, so not only did we raise the bar for the insurance industry itself, but we were also very good at providing morning teas, boardroom lunches, afternoon teas, birthday celebrations. We really looked for any excuse to share a meal together. The social atmosphere was important to us. So one day when one of our very own refused to join us at an end-of-month morning tea, it was noticeable. It got our attention. Fatima knew what she was missing out on, and she knew if she'd told us earlier that she was a Muslim, that we would have moved our morning tea to another date. But she didn't want to draw attention to herself. You see, for 1 month each year, Fatima fasts from dawn till dusk, every day. In Islam, this is called Ramadan. Fasting is also something that Jesus calls an act of righteousness. And it's also a practice that helps with our spiritual growth and maturity. Has anyone heard of the Go Sober in October campaign? Have you heard of that? It was something that I think they did last year, Cancer Council did last year to raise funds, I guess, and encourage people to give up drinking for a month and put those funds towards Cancer Council research. So in a sense, I think that this is fasting. This is an abstinence of alcohol for a period of time. Surely you've heard of Movember. I know that there's some people on this side of the room that have heard of it. But was it just a phase we went through, or was it actually a cause for something? I think it started out as men just giving up shaving for a cause. Was that right? Or I'm not sure. Not sure about that one. Lent is the Christian season of 40 days before Easter. People that I know fast during Lent. Is anyone fasting at the moment from something? We've been encouraged by Donna this morning to fast from something for our self-denial appeal. This is intentional, by the way, the fact that we have launched self-denial today, because it does tie in with the theme that we're talking about. But there's also in the universal Christian church this period of Lent, which is a time where it actually comes from the time when Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness fasting and praying, and he was tempted but didn't give in. The example that he gave for us. Some people I know have given up sugar for Lent. Some people have given up watching TV. And others, I'm not sure if I'd call them friends, but they've given up chocolate and coffee. I just think that's insane. Sorry, but I do. But seriously, there's no coincidence that we're talking about this, because this is more than just giving for this period. This is about making a decision, making a choice, making a commitment to what we're giving to, and it's about us giving up something of ourselves. Giving, praying, and fasting won't make us kingdom people. Giving, praying, and fasting, they are important things that we must do. They should be a part of our lives as kingdom people. In fact, they should actually be regular disciplines in our faith journey. But we'll miss the point if we leave it there, because anyone can give, anyone can pray, anyone can fast. These acts of righteousness will not make us kingdom people. There is something else. And I think the clue is found in some verses where Jesus uses a common phrase: do not be like the hypocrites. In verse 2, he says, so when you give to the needy, don't announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and on the streets, to be honoured by others. In verse 5, he says, when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. In verse 7, when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they will think they were heard because of their many words. Don't be like them. When you fast, do not look sombre as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. 4 times Jesus says, do not be like the hypocrites. Don't be hypocritical. And you're thinking right now, well, who was he talking about? Because if we can understand who the hypocrites are, we'll know if that person next to us is one. But as kingdom people, we must be aware of and we must watch out for the hypocrisy in our own lives. This is what we should look for. We are hypocrites if we say we're kingdom people, but we give in order to impress others, in order to satisfy our own generosity, our own idea of humility and charity. We are hypocrites when we say we're kingdom people and we pray and speak a lot of spiritual talk, but we're not willing to look at the real issues of our own heart. We are hypocrites if we say we're kingdom people who fast from sugar, food, TV, whatever, but we're not willing to surrender our whole lives to God. If we say we're kingdom people, what we do as kingdom people is in the public arena, and our motivation even more so. Motive is an important factor. I'm going to jump back to the Lord's Prayer just for a moment, because Jesus says in there, as we've looked at, when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans. And I wanted to share with you a little bit more about that, because pagan prayers were offered to all sorts of gods. It was part of the Greek culture to have pagan gods that people prayed to for specific purposes. Hera, for example, was their god of marriage, motherhood, and family. So if you were a woman who was desperate to find love or desperate to marry and desperate to become a mum, you would pray to Hera. If you were a crop owner and you needed rain to sustain your crop, you'd pray to the god of the sky, Zeus. All these gods existed for people back in Jesus' day. They were pagan gods that they prayed to. They were all prayers full of personal self-seeking requests. This context, I think, makes verse 8 even more relevant. Do not be like them, for your Father knows what you need before you ask him. And also in the Lord's Prayer, we know that, well, we may not know, it has an ending that we have learned to recite, but it wasn't read in our scripture passage this morning. The ending that was added looks a little bit like that. And it came from 1 Chronicles 29:11. Yours is the kingdom, the power and the glory. And the reason that sometimes this ending was written in to the prayer, it's so that when people who love God recited the prayer, those that heard that prayer would know exactly who we're praying to. The God who has majesty, authority, and kingship over all, over everything else, over all other gods, over everything. Public prayer tells others a lot about us and what's in our heart. And when what we hear coming from our mouths is inspired by our heart. It tells them about the God that we love and that we worship. Others see our motivation before we do. Others will see the hypocrisy in our behaviour when it doesn't match our motives. And if we say we are kingdom people, we must be motivated by the King, nothing else. So even though giving is important, in the public eye, it's our love, compassion and mercy for others that makes us kingdom people, not our giving. Even though prayer is important, in the public eye, it's our heartfelt love for God that's heard by others that makes us kingdom people, not our prayer. And even though fasting is important, in the public eye, it's our complete surrender of ourselves to God that's seen by others that makes us kingdom people. Kingdom people don't give, pray or fast to become kingdom people. Kingdom people give, pray and fast for the sake of others, for the sake of the world. If we say we're kingdom people, we must be motivated by the King, Jesus. When I was a little baby, very, very tiny little baby, a man who worked with my dad came and visited and came to see me, came to see my dad, and he opened my tiny little hand, because you know how babies keep he opened my tiny little hand and he placed a Scottish pound note inside my hand, and he said the words, "She will not want for anything." And I've been told this story because I don't remember it happening, but those words have stayed with me. And what I've realised is that in my life, I haven't wanted for anything. I've been blessed because I was raised in a very loving Christian family, and I've known God, I've known Jesus all my life. And that to me is a blessing because I know that there are people that don't have that same story. But that significance of those words, "she will never want for anything," comes back to the fact that Jesus has been a part of that. I place not a Scottish pound note in my hand. I place Jesus in my hand, in my heart, and I have never wanted for anything. This is the story that I was inspired to share, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And if we store treasure down here on earth, then we're going to be disappointed when thieves break in and steal. I don't actually know what happened to that note. I remember that our house got broken into once, and perhaps maybe it did get stolen. But the message that can never be taken away from me is that Jesus is in my heart, and I've never wanted for anything. So our point is, if we want to act like kingdom people, we must have Jesus at the centre of it all. When kingdom people take responsibility for those less fortunate because they love those less fortunate, lives are transformed. Communities are transformed. When kingdom people pray from the very inner place of their heart, and if that's a place where God is the ruler and has authority, their prayer has the power to heal, to protect, to provide, to proclaim God's will, and to birth new hope, and lives are transformed. And when kingdom people surrender themselves completely, fasting as a spiritual discipline for the purpose of drawing closer to God, lives are transformed. Kingdom people give, not to impress, but to bless. Kingdom people pray, not to impress, but to bless. Kingdom people fast, not to impress, but to bless. And all of this comes from the King. Our motivation for this comes from the King. Allowing Jesus to rule our hearts, allowing him to be our motivation, allowing him all of our will, blesses others and has the power to change the world. I love those words that we sing in a song, and I can't remember the name. Build your kingdom here, there it is. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. We sing those words, and we've sung them repetitively. We've sung them each week. It's a great song, and these are great words, but it challenges me. Come set your rule and reign in our hearts again. What does it mean for us to have God rule over our heart, to be king of our world? Kingdom people give, pray, fast, but mostly kingdom people bless, because kingdom people have Jesus as the king of their heart. So I'm going to ask the team if they'll come. We're going to have some time of prayer, reflection, and they're going to lead us in worship through that. And we're also going to bring the cross to the centre. And I want us to be asking, who is it? Who is it that gives us love? Who is it that gives us compassion and mercy? Who is it that we pray to? Who is it that we surrender our lives to? It's Jesus. And even though this is a symbol of Jesus, we can look at this symbol and see that the love that he poured out for us through this symbol, through this act of righteousness that he demonstrated, he poured out his love, his life for us. And I think that perhaps maybe today there might be some people here that are struggling to let go of letting God have rule and reign over their lives. Maybe you like to be in control of the money. Maybe prayer has just become a routine. Maybe giving up sugar once a year is something you just do. But what if it was something more? What if you did that because God had a purpose for you in that? See, God can only work in our hearts if we let him have authority and rule. And we're going to offer you time now to sit and worship and pray and think about what it is that rules your heart. And if you want to come and stand or kneel around the cross, placing Jesus at the centre of everything, then I invite you to do that too as a demonstration of your commitment to putting Jesus at the centre of it all today.